Welcome to the SaaS Backwards podcast, where we reverse engineer the success of fast-growing SaaS firms and explore strategies CMOs and CEOs are using to drive their businesses forward.
Welcome to SaaS Backwards, the podcast that helps go-to-market leaders accelerate growth and enhance profitability. This week, we're running a bold experiment. We recently wrote an ebook on how to revive inbound marketing, and we decided to feed it into an AI system to see what it would generate as a full podcast episode. And I'm not going to lie, there's a little bit of cheese, but overall, it's surprisingly good. Of course, we'll let you be the judge. So without further ado, here's our AI-generated take on what it takes to revive inbound today.
Okay, let's unpack this. If you're working in enterprise SaaS, you know that old marketing and sales playbook, the one that, felt pretty reliable for a long time.
Yeah, the predictable one.
Exactly. Well, it feels like it's just not really delivering like it used to. It's getting, frankly, really tough to depend on those old ways to drive growth.
Oh, definitely. We're hearing that across the board.
So we've dug into a bunch of sources, articles, some great research, notes you've shared, and they really explore why things have changed so much.
Right.
And crucially, what you actually need to do about it now, a really strong theme that keeps coming up, is how your advertising, your email outreach, and what your sales team does. Well, they have to be working together in a totally different, coordinated way.
Yeah, that coordination piece is massive.
Yeah.
It's not optional anymore if you want to actually connect with buyers and have real sales conversations.
So for this deep dive, our mission is pretty clear. Understand why that old predictable revenue engine is stalling out. Get our heads around this shift towards being genuinely buyer-centric.
Yeah.
And then walk through the practical, actionable steps you can actually take right now to make your go-to-market work in this, new reality.
And look, this isn't just theory, is it? Companies sticking to the old ways are seeing it hit their bottom line. Customer acquisition costs, C hours are going up. Outreach just isn't landing. And honestly, marketing and sales teams are getting pretty burned out. It's a big shift. And ignoring it, it's costly.
Okay, let's rewind a bit first. That predictable revenue model, the one that, fueled giants like Salesforce and HubSpot way back when, how did it work and why was it so effective then?
Yeah, the classic funnel. It was basically an engine run on content. Lots and lots of content.
Right.
The idea was to pull visitors in, mostly via search engines. They'd land on your site, fill out a form for some gated content, become an MQL, a marketing qualified lead.
An NQL, yep.
Then your BDRs, or SDRs, depending on the acronym you used.
Always acronyms.
Always. They'd nurture those leads, qualify them a bit more, and then pass the baton to the account executives, the AEs, to seal the deal. It really felt like this predictable machine. Put more on the top, get more at the bottom.
And the reason that machine worked so well was because of how buyers behaved back then, wasn't it?
Exactly. Buyers back then, they really relied on Google. They relied on email for finding information. Vendor content, that was a primary research source, especially early on.
So if you made good content, got their email.
You had a pretty clear path to building pipeline. More content equaled more leads, which generally meant more pipeline. The math felt, relatively straightforward.
But as our sources are screaming from the rooftops, that math just doesn't add up anymore. What's the fundamental change causing this breakdown?
It's the buyer. Simple as that. Their behavior is completely different now. They're just drowning in generic sales emails, cold outreach, stuff that isn't relevant.
Yeah, the noise level is incredible.
Right. And ghosting salespeople. That's not an accident. It's practically a survival tactic for buyers now, especially in enterprise deals. They built up this stiff arm defense against pitches that don't immediately show value.
It gets ignored.
Totally ignored.
Yeah.
And the data backs this up consistently. Buyers are way, way deeper into their own research before they'll even think about talking to a sales rep. Some data says 2/3 of the way. Some even pushes it to 90%.
Wow, 90%.
They've done their homework long before your SDR even gets them on the phone, assuming they even pick up.
And the places they used to do that homework, like Google, aren't helping vendors like they used to either. I saw a startling stat in the sources. Google now sends basically zero traffic to something like 95% of web pages.
That's a massive shift. Relying purely on SEO, search engine optimization, for that early stage demand capture, it's just getting harder and harder.
Why is that?
Well, Google wants to keep users on Google. So they prioritize things like their own AI summaries, big established publishers. It pushes smaller vendors down. It's much harder to get discovered organically through search early on. Rand Fishkin talks about this a lot. Traffic gets concentrated.
Plus, let's be honest, buyers are just more skeptical of vendor content now, aren't they? You download that white paper, you know the sales calls are coming.
Exactly. The trust factor has definitely eroded, so they're going elsewhere.
Where?
To places they do trust.
Yeah.
Their own networks. Private peer groups, think Pavilion, specific Slack communities, and definitely review platforms like TrustRadius, G2. That's where the real candid talk happens.
That makes sense.
And Vinay Bhagat from TrustRadius had this killer stat. 78% of buyers, and it jumps to 86% for enterprise deals. They pick products they've already heard of before they even kick off their formal research.
So familiarity and trust built somewhere else entirely are driving who even makes the first cut.
Precisely. It's not about discovering you through a random cold email anymore. And this directly impacts how your advertising, your email marketing, and your sales outreach need to work together. They have to build that familiarity and trust before the formal buying process even starts.
Okay, so if you're the CRO, the Chief Revenue Officer, you're kind of stuck, right? Your whole engine was built on this predictable model, but the fuel isn't working. CAC's rising, the returns aren't there. Your teams are getting demoralized because their emails and calls aren't working.
And the CEO's getting impatient, wanting quick fixes.
Right. And those old ways of coordinating marketing and sales around those funnel stages, they don't map to reality because the buyer isn't moving through that neat little funnel anymore.
Nope. The journey is way messier now.
So this brings us right to the core problem these sources are trying to solve. How do you actually break out of this cycle? The research seems to suggest that what we used to call inbound in, say, 2025, isn't about just generating heaps of leads anymore.
No, it's about consistently earning attention and building trust, slowly, deliberately, over time.
It's a pivot you have to make.
Absolutely necessary. You've got to show up where buyers actually are, on the platforms they hang out on, with content, with outreach that actually gives them something valuable right away.
Stand out from the noise.
Exactly. Stand out from all the generic stuff, especially the AI-generated fluff that's starting to flood everything.
I liked the reference in the source material to Gary Vaynerchuk's day trading attention.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Using those platforms to test your messages, see what actually resonates with people before you dump a load of cash into advertising it.
It really underscores that creativity, relevance, that human touch. Those are the filters now. They're essential for cutting through.
So the new path forward is genuinely becoming buyer-centric.
That's the heart of it. Deliver what buyers actually need, when and where they need it. Start by attracting people who already know they have a problem you can solve, or at least are open to understanding that problem better.
And then framing your solution well.
Right. Maybe using something like the reframe concept from the Challenger sale. Show them an angle or an opportunity they hadn't considered. Really dig into why your best customers bought from you. What was their aha moment? Use that to sharpen your unique selling proposition.
And test, test, test.
Crucially, yes. Test your messages organically first. LinkedIn, communities, wherever your buyers are. See what sticks before you amplify it with paid ads. That organic targeting is gold. It tells you what messaging will actually work when you coordinate it across email, ads, and sales conversations.
Okay, so that's the philosophy, but how do you actually do it? Let's get into the actionable steps the sources lay out for this new playbook.
Right. Let's translate theory into practice.
Step 1 is slow down to speed up, which honestly sounds completely counterintuitive when the pressure is on for results now.
It does feel that way, doesn't it? But the analogy in the source is spot on. Just hammering away with the old tactics. It's like spinning your wheels in the mud.
Lots of effort, no forward motion.
Exactly. You're burning energy, but your core message isn't landing. So you have to hit pause, take a breath, and really truly understand your audience first.
And the key concept here seems to be Bob Moesta's jobs to be done.
Yes, fundamental, absolutely critical. Moesta's insight is that people don't just buy products, they hire them to make progress in a specific situation.
Hire them, like an employee.
Sort of. Your software, your service, it's a tool they're hiring to overcome a struggle, to get from point A to point B to achieve some desired outcome. If your marketing and sales messages don't speak directly to that job, to the progress they're trying to make.
It's just noise, irrelevant.
Total noise. So understanding their struggle, their context, what actually triggers them to start looking for a solution that's the bedrock for all your go-to-market efforts, your ads, your emails, your sales calls, they all need to stem from that understanding.
Practically speaking, the source suggests building qualitative ICPs, ideal customer profiles.
Right. Qualitative. going way beyond just company size and job titles. You need to dig into the why. Why are they searching? What language do they use to talk about their problems? Moesta calls it the language of your customer's struggle.
Use their words, not yours.
Exactly. And then maybe reframe the problem in a way that helps them see a path forward, see how progress is possible, like McHugh suggests.
There's a really good example in the material about Cisco Meraki. Rebecca Stone shared how they connected with self-serve buyers by really focusing on those buyers' specific needs and jobs to be done.
Yeah, that's a great illustration.
Instead of just pushing Cisco features, they aligned everything with the buyer's reality. And that deep understanding then informed how they coordinated their advertising, their email, their whole approach. It shows it works.
And understanding this helps redefine what you even consider a lead, right? In this new world, chasing every form fill is a waste of resources.
So what is a lead now?
It's someone who, number one, has a problem you can genuinely help solve, A&D, number two, shows some intent to actually do something about it. You need to focus on people who are already problem aware, as McHugh puts it.
Think about Chet Holmes' idea.
The buying pyramid or buying window, yeah, only a tiny fraction, maybe 3% of your potential market is actively buying right now. Maybe another 7% are open to it.
Your job is finding that 10%, not shouting at the other 90%.
Precisely. Don't blast the whole ocean. Find the fish that are actually hungry.
Okay, which leads logically to step 2. Design your interviews to understand intent. And these aren't your standard customer feedback calls, are they?
No, definitely not. The goal here is to uncover those real struggling moments, the frustrations, the events that actually push someone to look for change, for a new solution.
You're not fishing for compliments about your product.
Not at all. You're trying to be an anthropologist. Understand the context. What was the trigger? What did their search process really look like? How did they evaluate options? What were the internal politics? The emotional roller coaster. Even ask what they wish was better after buying.
The source gives some great question examples based on Moesta's work, asking about the struggle, the trigger events, how they searched.
The decision process, the emotions, future improvements. Yeah, those are gold.
And some solid practical tips, too. Record the calls. Transcribe them. Use tools like Otter, Fireflies.
Makes analysis so much easier.
Then use LLMs like ChatGPT or Google's Notebook LM to quickly summarize the key themes and pull out those crucial language of the struggle quotes.
Then crucially, share those insights far and wide.
Yeah.
Marketing, sales, product, customer success. Everyone needs to swim in this understanding of the buyer. The source even suggests maybe using an agency sometimes. People might be more candid with a third party.
Right. And these insights, they become the raw material for everything else, don't they?
Absolutely. They dictate the angles for your ads, the hooks for your emails, the talking points for your sales team. This is the foundation for coordinating everything effectively around that buyer's reality.
Okay, step 3, build your confidence through testing. The sources really hammer this point. Test organically first before you spend big on paid ads.
Yeah, this is super important. Organic testing on platforms like LinkedIn, maybe in relevant communities. It's your low-cost, low-risk way to validate your messaging.
See what actually resonates.
Exactly. Take those insights from the interviews, the reframes, the pain points, turn them into posts, maybe short videos, articles, newsletter snippets. Share them where your buyers hang out. See what gets clicks, comments, shares, questions. That feedback tells you if you're on the right track.
So not just broadcasting, but listening to the reaction.
Listening intently. Send out small, targeted email tests, too. See which subject lines get opened, which messages get clicked. If a message bombs organically, throwing ad budget behind it won't magically make it work. This testing phase is critical for refining the messages you'll coordinate later.
Which brings us neatly to step 4, iterate and build momentum.
Right, because you won't nail it perfectly the first time. Nobody does.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly. Look at the engagement data from your organic tests. Tools like ShieldApp.ai for LinkedIn are mentioned. See what worked, what didn't, tweak your messaging based on that data and the ongoing insights from buyer interviews. Then, maybe test the refined messages with small, targeted paid campaigns. See if the organic success translates.
It's a cycle.
It's a continuous loop. Learn from interviews, test organically, analyze results, refine, test again, maybe paid, scale what works. This iterative process ensures that your coordinated efforts across advertising, email, and sales stay sharp and relevant.
Okay, now let's get specific about channels. Step 5, prepare your email campaign. Email's still powerful, but the source stresses that the copywriting has to be incredibly sharp now.
Oh, absolutely vital. I love Devin Reed's analogy in the source. Think of your email like a movie trailer.
Huh, I like that.
Its job isn't to tell the whole story or close the deal right there. Its job is to pique interest, to make them want to see the main feature. Maybe that's clicking through to insightful content, a compelling case study, a different perspective.
Not just book a demo now.
Exactly. The copy has to feel like you genuinely get their world, like you understand their specific struggle. That's what earns the open and the click.
So what are the key parts?
Well, the source highlights. Subject line, arguably numero uno. Have to grab them, use their language, hint at the problem or niche you understand.
Make them want to open it.
Then the opening line needs to immediately build on that promise. The body, concise, super relevant, directly referencing the insights you gained in steps 1-3. Show, don't just tell, that you understand. And the call to action, clear, obvious, easy.
This sounds like it needs real direct response copywriting chops.
It does, and you need to test different angles, different trailers, and manage expectations. The force rightly points out, don't assume downloading an asset means they're ready for a sales call. Let them consume the value first. Nurture them with insights.
Okay, which flows right into step 6. Prepare your advertising campaigns. Ads aren't separate. They work with email and sales. Coordination is key here.
Absolutely. Think of digital ads as a powerful amplifier and another way to capture intent signals. This is where the coordination really pays off.
Because seeing someone engage with both an email and an ad is a much stronger signal.
Much stronger. It tells you there's likely real interest there. So message consistency is crucial. Your ads need to reflect the same core insights, the same language that worked in your organic tests and emails.
How about targeting?
For search ads, use the actual terms and phrases buyers used in your interviews. For social, especially LinkedIn for B2B, target by company, sure, but also by skills, seniority level. And definitely upload your key contact list from your CRM. Hit the right people with the right message.
And the source had a warning about using LinkedIn ads just to push for demos, didn't it?
Yeah, that's often not the best play. LinkedIn is more for building awareness, reinforcing your message, staying top of mind. It complements your other touches. The goal is often to get multiple signals. They saw the ad and they opened the email and they visited your pricing page. That's when sales gets involved, armed with that context.
So the ads job isn't always conversion, but contribution to the overall picture of intent.
Exactly. It informs the sales conversation. Plan for conversations, not just pitches.
Any pro tips on ads?
Yeah. The source mentions avoiding super rigid targeting skills and seniority might be better than exact job titles sometimes. And this idea of surround sound, lead gen.
Surround sound.
Yeah, hitting the entire buying committee at a target account simultaneously, but with messages tailored to each role. If your solution impacts IT, finance, and operations, craft slightly different ad messages for each of them, hitting them across different channels around the same time. Much more powerful than a single generic blast.
That sounds sophisticated. And all of this, the email, the ads, the eventual sales outreach, relies heavily on having a good, clean, up-to-date contact list.
Foundational. Absolutely foundational. The source notes something like 25% annual turnover in contact databases.
Wow, that's huge.
It means constant vigilance, making sure your list actually matches your ICP, cleaning out contacts who aren't a fit, tracking engagement across all these channels, who opened what, clicked what, viewed what, linking up on social strategically, not to pitch immediately, but to build connections. Jason Myers from Austin Lawrence Group is mentioned as a resource here for list hygiene and cold email strategy. Your list quality dictates the effectiveness of almost everything else downstream.
Okay, so that list hygiene feeds right into the final piece, rethinking SDR, BDR follow-up in 2025. That old dial for dollars, book meetings at all costs model is dead.
Has to be. It's just not effective, and buyers hate it. The new way for SDRs and BDRs is all about leveraging triggers and lead intelligence, meaning their outreach isn't cold anymore. It's prompted by something the buyer actually did, or something happening at their company. It's contextual. It shows you're paying attention.
Like what kind of triggers?
Do they just download that specific white paper you promoted via email? Did they attend your webinar? Are they a current user showing certain product usage patterns? Did their company just announce a new initiative? Did they engage with one of those surround sound ads?
Okay, so the outreach starts with relevance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The source gives an example like, hey, I saw you engage with our recent deep dive on specific challenge. It immediately connects the dots for the buyer.
And lead intelligence.
That's using all the data you have from the CRM, from intent data providers, from those crucial buyer interviews to tailor the outreach further. understand their likely context, anticipate the gap they're trying to bridge, mirror the language they use, help them make progress, like Mo Estes says.
And the source makes a really bold point. Remove the incentive for SDRs just to book meetings.
Game changer. Seriously. If the only thing that matters is meetings booked, you get quantity over quality. You get SDRs pushing for calls that aren't ready, wasting the AE's time burning bridges.
So shift the metrics.
Shift to meaningful engagements, quality conversations. Did the SDR successfully identify a buyer who genuinely agrees that the problem you solve is a priority for them? That's a much better measure of success.
It means fewer meetings overall, probably.
Probably, but the ones you do get are far more likely to progress. The conversation should be laser-focused on the problem, not just ramming the product down their throat.
SDRs as problem solvers, not appointment setters.
That's the goal. Using questions like, what's really holding you back in an area? If you could wave a magic wand, what would change? What happens if you don't solve this?
It reminds me of that Jason Myers quote in the material. When you reach out to people who already agree it's a problem worth solving, you don't have to convince them.
Exactly. The heavy lifting on problem awareness has already been done through your coordinated marketing. Sales isn't starting from zero. Higher quality leads, higher close rates. Makes sense, right?
Yeah, it really does. And the final piece is making sure SDRs and the AEs are tightly aligned.
Crucial. Seamless handoff. All the context, the triggers, the engagement history, the key points from the SDR's conversation needs to flow smoothly through the CRM, maybe even a quick handoff call. The buyer needs to feel like it's one continuous, intelligent conversation, not like they're starting over with someone new. That whole integrated journey, from the first ad or email to the AE call, helps the buyer feel understood and makes progress easier.
This whole buyer-centric playbook, coordinating everything, it's definitely a big shift from that old assembly line model. The source even pointed to ClickUp as a company that grew super fast using a different kind of approach.
Yeah, Melissa Rosenthal from ClickUp shared some fascinating stuff. They weren't afraid to use humor, be bold, even poke fun at competitors in their campaigns.
Built awareness quickly.
Massively. Market saturation, smart out-of-home ads, really getting the brand seen everywhere. And they use this portfolio approach to their creative.
Meaning?
Constantly testing lots of different ideas, iterating super fast, adapting based on what the data showed was working. A lot of it was done in-house, apparently, for speed and cost efficiency.
High output, lots of testing.
Exactly. And their marketing wasn't just about leads. It built a strong brand culture, even helps with hiring, because people were drawn to their vibe. It's a great example of how creative, coordinated messaging that builds brand awareness first can really prime the pump before sales even gets involved.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this deep dive up. The clear message from all the sources is that old predictable revenue model for enterprise SaaS, it's running on fumes.
Yeah, the buyer has changed too much.
Just scaling up the old tactics, siloed content, siloed ads, siloed email, disconnected sales outreach, just won't cut it. You can't expect predictable results from a disconnected process anymore.
The necessary shift is towards being truly buyer-centric. And it's more than just tweaking tactics. It's a fundamental mindset change.
It means really digging deep to understand the buyer's job to be done.
Rigorously testing your messages organically before you spend big.
And critically, coordinating your advertising and email based on those validated insights and the engagement signals you're seeing.
And totally revamping that SDR-BDR role, focusing on meaningful conversations sparked by real buyer triggers and intelligence, not just cold volume.
And the payoff, if you do all this, the sources are pretty clear on that too.
Yeah, a pipeline that's actually filled with buyers who get the problem and are genuinely considering solutions like yours.
Sales teams having fewer, but way better conversations that actually lead somewhere.
And marketing that feels precise, intentional, and actually aligned with what buyers need, driving the right conversations. Every touch point from that first ad impression to the final sales negotiation feels connected and relevant to the buyer.
It definitely sounds like more upfront effort, the research, the testing, the coordination.
It is, no doubt. But by truly focusing on the buyer's world and letting those insights drive how your advertising, email, and sales teams work together, you build the kind of trust that leads to sustainable growth. Way more sustainable than hoping the old machine magically starts working again. This playbook gives you the map.
So as you digest everything we've covered in this deep dive, here's something to chew on. What is just one specific thing, maybe small, maybe big, that you could change in how your marketing or sales teams operate today, based on what we've discussed, to make things feel just a little bit more buyer-centric for your enterprise SaaS audience? Something to think about.
Thanks for listening to the SaaS Backwards podcast, brought to you by Austin Lawrence Group. We're a growth marketing agency that helps SaaS firms reduce churn, accelerate sales, and generate demand. Learn more about us at www.austinlawrence.com. You can email Ken Lempet at kl@austinlawrence.com about any SaaS marketing or customer retention subject. We hope you'll subscribe, and thanks again for listening.